Hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Wild User Interviews podcast with me, ABB. Today, I've got with me Maria Yarotska from DevHub. Welcome, Maria.
Hi, thank you for inviting me.
I was doing a bit of research to try to write like a more comprehensive description for you, but I thought I'd just give you that honor because there's so many things there I didn't know where to focus on.
Yeah, it's complicated. My team calls me the Hackathon Headmistress because I'm in charge of all near hackathons for almost 3 years now. I joined the near ecosystem, I think exactly 3 years ago when they hosted the second Meta Build hackathon. And I remember back then it was not such a big ecosystem, definitely not such a big team. So they were trying to do this hackathon. They offered $1 million in prizes. And lo and behold, thousands of developers joined and they didn't know what to do with it. So I offered my hackathon expertise. I didn't know anything about blockchain at the time. So I had to educate myself on the goal, but I think I did pretty good for a generalist. Now we are wrapping up another huge hackathon with $750,000 in the bounty pool.
Not enough.
The online hackathon. Yeah, the big one.
Yeah.
We have 1,600 people who joined the hackathon and hundreds of submissions. So I'm dealing with young unicorns, with baby unicorns every day. And I probably need to set up a betting system just to know what's going to be the next big thing because I kind of have my bets, but I prefer not to make them public.
Betting is all the rage these days. I'm not gonna show off, but I did make money from the recent election, which is crazy. I remember seeing you at different points in time, especially your name come up. And look, I'm not gonna lie. I'd say for about 50% of the time, it was mostly fear that I associated with you. I guess something about the Hackathon Headmistress, like its order, it's very organized. It felt like if you fucked up, you were gonna chop someone's head off, and probably not the right perception. Definitely, the more that I got to interact with you, I realized that you're actually really nice. I may go as far as to say one of the nicest people within your ecosystem. So yeah, I'm wondering, has anyone ever shared with you like that sort of like a mix of perceptions or
Yeah, they did. There is a reason for that. So there is a really great book that explains personalities like mine. It's called Quiet, The Power of Introverts. So I actually really
from Susan?
That's her. That's a great book. I listened to it and I understood immediately what's going on with me and people around me who are going to the conferences and genuinely enjoying the experience. And well, for me, conference is something that I have to stretch myself really, really hard to get to enjoy the experience and be productive. So I recharge from my own, but I really like working with people and I like working with them in a deeper manner. I like ping ponging ideas. I like discussing concepts, and hackathon is the best way to do it, to facilitate the interactions. So for the hackathon, I'm all in. I cannot say that I developed a separate personality to host hackathons. This is me. But then I get really up close and personal because when people talk about their ideas, they kind of talking about what's near and dear to them. They get really open. And I'm trying to be really gentle with them because you don't want to criticize them too harsh or tell them, this is shit. You're not gonna make it. So this is probably why I come out as nice at first. But then when the deadline approaches, I'm really serious about deadlines. And then this gentle mom figure suddenly turns into a server of sorts and says, no, you have to do a submission and I don't have time for you. That's what the fear comes from.
Yeah, I would have said more of a monster. Not kidding. No, but maybe for context, and I don't know if you remember because I'm sure that you were dealing with so many people, but at NearCon last year, I was in 2 teams, which is as crazy as it sounds. And yeah, some of the early interactions, I wasn't hiding, but I also wasn't like looking forward to presenting my ideas. I was like, oh, what if she sings this shit? And then you were like really perceptive and actually great feedback. But then what happened was I was so invested creating the slide deck. I miss your messages. Hey, we need you to confirm. Are you going to pitch?
Oh, no.
And I was like, oh shit, this is not the kind of situations you want to be in, Maria, because I missed the cutoff and then the 10 teams were selected like a very lucky team got in because I didn't respond. And then we had the weird scenario where we had 11 teams. I don't know if people realized that there were 11 instead of 10 or whatever, how it meant to be. But yeah, it was a nice display of that flexibility and support. And yeah, I really appreciated that. It was also nice
Yeah,
seeing
I
you at the
absolutely
Brussels
get it.
hackathon.
We get so lost in the moment. If you remember 2 year comes ago, it was 2022 still. The guy who won the pitching competition was actually Sam Disney, the guy who wrote the book on how to win hackathons. So I read that book afterwards. And Sam introduced this really interesting concept of how to structure your work during the hackathon. Because if you don't structure it really precisely, then not the best developer or the best startup wins the hackathon. It's actually the best project manager because you get to accomplish so many things in such a short amount of time. Pay some attention to the pitch, make sure that the code works, make sure that the team stays together, make sure that everyone gets some hours of sleep. And then at the end of it, you get to bid. Really, you need to be super organized and you need to approach it. If you want to win the bounty, if you're one of those bounty hunters, are super organized, to be honest.
From your experience, how many people are there to win and how many are there to explore something new, maybe to learn, and how many are there just to have fun?
I would say like 20% are there to cut throat, to grab the bounty, and to win the competition. And 80% are there just have fun and bounce ideas. And I really love that attitude because hackathons are not the place to be cutthroat. It's a place to learn something new and to try to have fun. And I really like the ideas that come up, like trivia, for example, or raffles, when they really make something really fun out of it. I remember last NearCon, it was a guy who made augmented reality project. And then there was this guy who made a POS terminal for crypto. So when people really go out there, really think out of the box, I think that's what makes the most interesting submissions.
Well, that was going to be my next question, whether there was a correlation between the cutthroat and the quality and win rate. Because what I find is I have to be in that more creative, relaxed mode to really come up with good ideas. Then you go into execution mode. If I'm a bit too constrained by the bounties or just wanting to win, I personally find it harder to come up with something that is actually worth it. I was curious about generally how many people, how does it split, and whether it's a consideration when maybe judging or framing the hackathon.
Yeah, that's actually a great question, how to find this balance between learning and exploring. I think when it comes to measuring success of the hackathons, we are here to funnel this developer entrepreneur persona into wider funnel of entrepreneurs who eventually join the ecosystem and generate revenue. Simple as that. So the more popular apps we have in the ecosystem, the better the blockchain is doing. And in that case, what I would be looking for would be actually business models and not like code exceptionality and technical excellence. But in my opinion, it's not that simple. I always look for the teams that are more than one person. I respect individual hackers, but I think if people manage to team up, especially for longer hackathons like redacted ones, and split the work and deliver something as a team, that means that they can work as a team further. They are coachable, they are listening. And yeah, if the concept is there, I think no one gets from hackathon to unicorn state in one piece. The idea changes, the team changes, the scope changes. So what needs to be there is technical expertise, founder market fit. So they need to have at least some expertise at the market they are trying to approach. And there needs to be some at least basic understanding of the business model that's going to back it up. Because if it's not there, it's going to be a little bit harder to help them find this go-to-market strategy that they need to grow.
Yeah, this is music to my ears because I usually come at it from like the business model product side of things. And then I always tell the devs, I think this is easy to build. Sometimes it isn't.
Right. Yeah, I can do it. They can build for us. So everyone is fired now. All the developers are fired.
I don't know if you've seen there's almost like an arc that people go through during hackathons. And I was going through it in Brussels, where I was just like frustrated and angry and just wanted to give up in life. And I may or may not have abused some of the dev rails. But then I went to have, I think it was dinner or whatever with my team. And someone else asked us like, "Oh, how are you guys going?" And I was like, "No, this is shit. Nothing is working. I think we're just going to give up." And then I think I said something like, "I think it's more likely for Jesus to come back than for us to make a submission." And then my team member was like, "Mate, don't worry. I am baby Jesus."
I'm in that, and we're going to deliver
4 o'clock. It was the funniest thing. I was like, wow, this is incredible. Even if it doesn't work, like I appreciate like the enthusiasm. And I could 4 o'clock in the morning, they somehow made it work. I was really impressed, and those were very early days of chain abstraction, first time touching near, and it was pretty cool. Super basic idea, fair enough, but it was a nice effort, and yeah, I was pretty happy with the results.
I appreciate good age in people, but I also think that the main person you need to compete at the hackathons yourself to deliver more than you planned kind of thing, and not look at other people what they are doing. Because otherwise you won't pivot at 4 a.m. and then deliver something completely unexpected. I think challenging yourself during the hackathon is a very good, healthy thing to have. Pursuing just the bounty is, I wouldn't call it toxic, but it sucks out all of the life out of the process, takes out all the fun, and leaves just, this cutthroat competition, we need to win.
I agree. It's interesting that it's tied with what you mentioned before about there is a book, listened to the podcast ages ago, probably like 2016, 2017. I think it's called like the 4 personality types or something along those lines. And it was interesting because different people work very differently. Like from what I can remember roughly, it was like external expectation or internal expectation. Like basically some people, if they say, look, I'm going to go to the gym, they'll never go. But if somebody else holds them accountable, like external accountability, then they'll do it. Some people are the opposite. Some people will set goals to themselves and stick to it if they want to do it. But if an external party imposes that on them, they'll completely just reject it. So there's different ways of working, and I wonder, do hackathons account for that?
So maybe it was not the book you were listening to. I know another book with a really clickbaiting name, which is called I'm Surrounded by Idiots or something like that. It describes exactly 4 personalities of people. And what's the most precious about this book, that the final part is dedicated completely to how to work with this kind of people, how to work with their motivation, how to eventually become a better leader. So in my opinion, why I prefer teams to individual hackers, because a team of all stars, a good hackathon project doesn't make. You need diverse people with diverse skills. You need those people who are comfortable analyzing like million lines of code and they're not bored doing that up to 4 a.m. And you need like cheerful people who say, you can do it. And then they deliver an amazing pitch and they sell it. And you need people who get brilliant ideas out of thin air and they say, what if we do it like this could be actually a successful business model? And all those people individually deliver just one side of the project. And the well-rounded team is something that we would be looking for in terms of psychological capabilities and skills, if you like. And actually, the more I work with Web3 developers, the more I discover how diverse this crowd actually is. Some people are really like diehard nerds. They bring 3 monitors to the hackathon and the full fridge of Red Bull, these kinds of people. And some are really outgoing, and the better part of the year, they're out there traveling, collecting ideas, collecting inspiration. So their approach is completely different. They tend to find the problem that they want to approach, and they code the solution to that problem. As in, the nerd would be really inspired by some technological thingy that they found, and then I need to deliver this to the world. Needs to see. You probably remember this series Silicon Valley, right? I think it describes perfectly, the ideal recipe for the team that needs to have a hacker, a hustler, and a hipster. And the hacker would always be, no, this algorithm, you don't understand, it's so complex. I've invested so much time in it. And the hipster would say, oh, it can actually really solve problems. And the hustler would sell it to people who are willing to invest money in it. So that's the recipe for success, in my opinion. I hope that answers your
100%.
question.
But I feel like that there's a recipe for success in a normal team. Like that would be true at any time. Because what I've often wondered, and I think we did a great job this year having a hackathon that was like 9 weeks, is how much do the incentives define the behavior? Like, for instance, I don't know if you heard that it was this French guy. He placed a huge bet on the election. He won like 47 million or something.
Cool.
And now that he's won, he shared his methodology and he's, look, there are the polls. You go and you ask people, who do you want to win? Or who do you think is going to win? But there's a different polling methodology where you ask people who they think their neighbor is going to vote for. And apparently, in that polling mechanism, you get a deeper introspection to people's perception of their surroundings. And I heard about a similar experiment like a few years ago where they gave people a yearbook with a bunch of people's photos. And then there's 3 stages. The first round, they ask them to choose who they personally think it's like the best looking person. And then the second round is who they think somebody else is going to pick as the best looking person. But the third round is who they think somebody else is going to pick as somebody else's pick. And the crazy thing is that every round is a different outcome. So you can start to see how there's an incredible amount of assumed knowledge and lived experiences in people's head that they eventually come through in the final product. But I feel like if we unpack them along the way, or we try to focus or optimize some things, we could probably get different outcomes.
I remember, so I mentioned this guy, Sam Disney, who wrote a book on how to win hackathons, and he really emphasized that to make a winning pitch, you have to really read the criteria, the judging criteria, because this is what people are looking into. If you ever judge the hackathon, you might know that it's not just a list of projects and people picking something that they like. We have several criteria. Usually we have a rubric for that criteria. So we usually really explain what does 1 point mean, what does 5 point mean. So we want people to stay objective. But still, they assess each project from this 360 point of view, not just technology, but also the quality of the idea. Is this unique? Is this something never done before? Or is this some improvement on something? Or does it address real world problem, or is it something abstract? So they have this whole thing, but it's actually always explained in the hackathon rules. So the only thing you need is to read this, take your project idea, and try to understand how to explain your project idea the way that it would be judged by these criteria. Back to your point, whom other people would find the most appealing, right? Which project the judges might find the most appealing? Then you think about that and you present your project, any project, this kind of way, because it's all about storytelling. It's not about the code. You take any project and you just explain it the way you want the judges to take a look at it.
We've been talking for 20 minutes about hackathons and all the psychological and childhood trauma along the way, probably. But I still don't know who you are. I'm curious, how did you get into Web3, or how did you arrive at the Near ecosystem? What were you doing before? Take us anywhere you want to go. But yeah, who is Maria Yarotska?
Hey friends, quick break to tell you about today's sponsors. Metapool, the leading liquid staking protocol on Near that lets you earn rewards while keeping your assets flexible and usable. They're one of the first sponsors of the podcast, so if you really want to support the show, support them. And trust me, the timing could not be better. Recently, they have launched a new liquidity pool on Ref, offering up to 10% APY, and it gets even better. For those ready to dive deeper, you can earn up to a whopping 75% as of the time of recording. As an MP DAO holder, I'm participating in governance. Just imagine earning those juicy rewards while helping shape the future of the protocol. But here's what really caught my attention. They're giving back to their community in a big way. They're launching a special funding round to reward people who have contributed to the ecosystem retroactively in collaboration with Potluck. Plus, they've expanded their reach by adding support in Vietnamese, Korean, Japanese, and Thai, making decentralized finance more accessible than ever and going a long way since their humble origins in Latam. Want to learn more? Visit metapool.app and join the thousands that are already earning rewards on Near. We really thank Metapool for supporting the show. And now back to our conversation.
Who is Maria Yarotska?
Yeah, it's a actual one of mystery, that is. It's actually really simple to explain. So my main education is in management. So I was supposed to manage things, which I was having doing up until 2016, I think. And then I found out that NASA, that the space agency that is, they have this incubation program called NASA Space Hubs, and they host an annual global hackathon to funnel ideas into their orbit and eventually find companies that NASA would work with. The reason for that is quite simple, because NASA's approach has always been very conservative. If you need to build a rocket, you need to design everything from scratch, every single bolt. And then this concept was disrupted. Space industry now uses products off the shelf, and they need more companies to work with. And they facilitate this ecosystem through hackathons. And I've been dreaming about working in space tech since I realized I couldn't be an astronaut. So I thought maybe I could get close in a different way. So I decided, okay, I want to participate in a hackathon. So I took my brother, I took two of my best friends, and throughout the weekend, we made this VR simulator of colonizing Mars. Yeah. You remember back in the day, they had this VR goggles made out of cardboard, so we utilized those. We didn't win, but throughout the process, I understood, oh, this is what I want to do. I want to host hackathons. This is so amazing. So many people with all of those bright ideas. So next year, I applied to be host for NASA Space Labs Hackathon, and I've been approved for some reason. They took this leap. Yeah, and then I hosted my first hackathon. My first in-person hackathon was 100 people big in a city that never hosted a space hackathon before. And from there, I perfected this craft of hosting developer and engineer-focused events, acquired sponsorships, found better venues, found this recipe for a successful hackathons. What kind of mentors do we need to have? What kind of schedule do we need to apply? And then, yeah, I became quite famous in this really niche community of space gigs. And someone told near people that I can host hackathons. So back to the moment where I joined the ecosystem, they had this hackathon that they didn't know how to manage. So they thought that they would give me a chance because I have a skill of managing hackathons. And then the Web3 skill would eventually come, which happened that way. But I still, my one half of me is dedicated to Web3, but half of me is still in space tech. For example, after Redacted Hackathon, I'm hosting a Cassini hackathon. Cassini is a program of European Space Agency. It's a hackathon that happens twice a year. And this edition, the 8th edition, would be dedicated to defense and security and application of space technology in that. So I'm hosting that with like really serious people, military guys, intelligence guys. And I'm super grateful for this two-sided work experience because I can apply best practices from there to blockchain. And from blockchain, I can apply the best project management practices and the best event management practices to space tech. So this is who I am work-wise. Personal-wise,
That's crazy.
I live in Portugal and a daughter. So that's what you need to know about me.
Nice. I think it's hilarious that you're like, it's super simple. It's actually a crazy story. It's probably, if you had asked me to guess and be like, go wild, I would have never guessed that. But that is super cool. First of all, do you have a security clearance for the upcoming hackathon and working with the military and stuff?
Yeah, I do. They did like their due diligence.
Well,
They drove
I'm
me
very
with
happy. I'm very happy that this podcast will get at least a few extra downloads from the people doing your next security clearance.
Yeah, most definitely. They will be pretty surprised with this second side of my life. Sometimes they don't even understand what this blockchain community is about. They
We'll help
think
them.
that,
We'll help them.
shitty coins, meme coins, that's what we got. We don't realize that, like space tech, it's integrated on very human level. You use, for example, you use Google Maps every time you get out somewhere, or Waze, or whatever you use. And every time you do that, you use GPS, global positioning system, which is space technology. And then you open Sweatcoin and you just do this walk for fun or run for fun, and you receive tokens as a reward. And for most people, it's chain abstraction in its purest, because blockchain is deeply integrated in the product that they use daily, but they don't realize that. And I think that's the most beautiful thing about blockchain. When it improves the product, but improves it not being like front and center.
To me, just came up with this. The standard of a technology reaching mass adoption and succeeding is when people can take it to create something super crazy, like silly, maybe like a joke. The idea that we had for the hackathon that I didn't end up doing was like a meme coin that could only be minted if you performed an action. So I would have used like machine vision to validate the action. And we're like, look, let's go for like virality. We'll call it fat ass. And you can only mint the coin if you do like a squat. So that may be an example of it's actually using really cool technology like the machine vision, and then it mints on the blockchain. But we really wanted to just abstract all of that and have an application where you can have something funny. Would you recommend this to your friends? And there's a lot of thought that I put into it. And
It's viral potential, right?
maybe we should still do it for Christmas. Late entry for the hackathon.
Definitely, we still need to do it. There is Global Bangkok happening next weekend.
There you go. I'll have to register myself last minute. Out of curiosity, where was the hackathon hosted? The first space one that you attended?
The first space one was back home in Ukraine, in Kiev.
Yeah. Nice. And this is going to be a tough question.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel like you'd like to go back to be the hacker or the builder? Or are you happy now being the organizer? Is there a trade-off there or an opportunity cost, personal opportunity cost?
Every time I find myself at that hackathon. Last time it was actually East Berlin. We didn't sponsor the bounty. They didn't really accept sponsorships. But we went there to show our bounty booster thing by DevHub. So if you win a hackathon anywhere in the world and you win it with near technology, DevHub would match your bounty. So we went to East Berlin. We told everyone about the bounty boosters. Okay, now I find myself in Berlin during the blockchain week. What I gotta do? And then I found myself at the Berlin Hackathon. I have a ticket. I have a bunch of really talented and clever people around me. Maybe I should stay. So I stayed, and for half of the night I was hacking away, and then I realized, no, I actually need to get back to work. I need to focus on my main mission. Every time I'm in personal hackathons, I really want to go back to my hacking days. Not just because every time it's so inspiring, they have these bounties and then new technologies that you want to try out, but also because being in the middle of this crowd of really talented, highly energetic people who are just bubbling with ideas, it's a great place to be. So I feel like everyone should do a hackathon at least once in their lives.
100% agree. And I guess you are one of the big decision makers when it comes to funding, if people apply for sponsorship or they want to host their own hackathons. But sometimes it can be very hard to convey that energy, because I would imagine a grant proposal may not do the best if it's just based on vibes. So you don't want to say, hey, the vibes are going to be top notch. Trust me, it's going to be like some really cool builders. But in some ways, it is that energy. It's almost like that big bang where you get all the energy and all the ingredients and something may come out of it. Hard to tell. Some of the people that I've hacked with this year, I met in conferences last year. If you look at the classic journey of a product, it may take several touch points for the user to convert, pick up your stack. I also wonder, as a hackathon organizer, and I don't know what KPIs as being viable for a hackathon, but how do we balance out that our technology is also evolving? for MetaBiddle 2, the tech stack was like baby compared to what we have now.
Yeah.
And the challenge that we have now is that the baby has grown, but now it's like a grumpy teenager. So the documentation, it's maybe missing a leg or something. So how do we balance out? Okay, we'll throw a bunch of money at the problem, but we're also developing on this side.
That's an interesting question. I guess that my KPIs, my OKRs, they always like, I suggest something to the leadership, but the main narrative is always coming from them. And last year it was about developer retention. So we were very oriented on this number of monthly active developers reflected in the quarterly elected capital report. They rank the ecosystem by the number of monthly active developers. And we were looking to that. And I would say if you look at this report back retrospectively, you will find out that our ecosystem of developers is in natural decline because blockchain was really big a couple of years ago. Everyone wanted to join, but then only people who mean business, they stayed. So now the ecosystem is maturing. So the quantity transforms into quality and we cannot judge anymore. Solana has 1 million active developers. So Solana is the best. No. It depends on the quality of projects, of top projects that generate transactions on blockchain. And therefore they have real live users, people who use them every day. So right now, my main KPI at the top of that funnel, where I accept everyone who wants to start coding on blockchains through Hackathon, would be to see like what kind of projects are here to stay, what projects are sticking. And it's a little bit challenging because not a single project stayed the same after the hackathons through incubation and acceleration. So it's about founders, probably, what founders find this ecosystem interested enough to stay, keep building, what kind of founders would listen to us and follow our narrative. So I wanted to chain abstraction and AI now. How does that align with the goals and values of the ecosystem? So the main KPI lies there. And I don't work as a single unit. We are an ecosystem of local communities that challenge us to supply different pathways and social elevators, so to say, to local developers anywhere from Africa to India. And there is Horizon. They do acceleration cohorts. So they shift their focus once in a while and they tell us, okay, now we are really focused on, I don't know, med tech or something like that. And then we craft our hackathon bounties to find these kind of people. And then there's leadership, and they're aiming for different North Stars every quarterly report. I suspect it's not because they changed their mind, because the backers need to agree with their vision of success. So really, hackathons they need to align with so many things. It's a three-body problem. So we are pulled in different directions all the time.
Yeah, I'm mindful of the many different stakeholders and variables. That's why I'm going to try to make it about you. It's hard to talk about other entities and you don't want to lose your security clearance, but I'm really curious. Was there anything about Web3 that you had heard before or that you were interested in prior to being tapped in the shoulder to help Near with its hackathon? Or did you just arrive as a professional and then you've stayed afterwards? And if so, has anything sparked your interest or really kept you in since?
Still does. It still really sparks my interest to think actually that the chain abstraction narrative was there even when I joined. The people use products built on blockchain and don't even realize this is blockchain or this is this particular blockchain built in. So I was really inspired by this use case of the whole layer of shadow economy in Iran, where women are not allowed to have personal bank accounts. They're not allowed to pay for the daughter's education or even like for the dentist. So what they do is they issue one of those crypto cards. They go to the ATM, they get some cash, and they use blockchain every day for transactions. And they don't realize what the blockchain is. It just helps them navigate through life. And then when the full-scale invasion in Ukraine started, there was this chain foundation that provided direct monetary help to families in need. And it was so streamlined and so efficient, unlike all of those giant and inert international organizations. You just accept donations and cryptocurrency and you transfer it directly to people in need. So these were two cases that I were really familiar with, which inspired me and made me understand that blockchain is actually not just a big bubble, which at some point it is. And then when I dug deeper, I was also really inspired with the sustainability use cases when they use blockchain in maritime logistics to trace the paths of different goods that are shipped by the sea. And then the companies claim, oh, we have zero carbon footprint. And blockchain can really show, is it zero or is it not really zero? But my main focus is in sustainability use cases and always with these DeFi instruments that help people overcome real life problems and barriers.
Yeah, I've always split different groups of people, and it's fascinating to see them all in the wild trading shitcoins and dumping on each other. There's the people that are in it for the tech. I call it engineering Olympics. They may be, just drawn to a technical problem. They enjoy working at it. It's a weird category because you can succeed without succeeding broadly. You can be insanely rich. You can reach a technical milestone, but there's not necessarily that handover to, okay, somebody else will actually use this afterwards. In that sense, Web3 is very different to maybe the Web2 technology where you actually have to commercialize it. I remember when I was at uni in Australia, they have all these researchers that do their technical breakthroughs. By the way, at uni, all these PhDs and whatever, they're not really getting paid that much. And then there's a commercialization unit. They try to get patents, take it to market. There's an accelerator. Like making the breakthrough, it's the beginning of the journey. And then you raise money to cover costs. Like it's strange in Web3. Then you've got people that they have experienced the problems in the real world, but they may not have the skills or the knowledge on how the blockchain can help them. And there's a huge gap there. And I get a little bit, I wouldn't say annoyed, but it does feel weird. Like we're in Thailand now. I was just in Chiang Mai for a month. There wasn't a single local in any of these events. It was Vitalik, Mega ETH, Invisible Garden, hundreds of ZK developers doing crazy shit.
Okay.
Chiang Mai barely accepts credit cards. When they do, it's 3%. There's this bizarre thing where some groceries only accept bank payments if you're a customer of the bank. This is weird. It feels a bit predatory, a bit of monopoly. There's clearly a lot of friction here. And it was pretty wild to me that there were a lot of people building stuff. And nobody thought I could just go and talk to locals and see what we can build to help maybe ease some of that friction here. I've seen it in Venezuela and Argentina, very early adopters of Bitcoin and USDT. I see also top contributors from like Eastern Europe, also historical challenges. And
Brazil is among the pioneers. They released this digital peso and they work closely with blockchain community as well. Yeah.
they speak Portuguese, so we don't know whether. Do you speak Portuguese?
Yeah, I do speak Portuguese a little bit now. It's just, it's a little bit funny what you say about Chiang Mai. And I think after huge crypto conferences here in Lisbon, I don't live in central Lisbon or in the touristic area. And so sometimes I would see local people wearing, for example, I don't know, SailGP t-shirts. And I know exactly where they got them from Humana Shop, where they thrifted it. How did they end up there? Because probably someone printed a little bit of excess swag and then they dumped it or sold it or whatever. This is the footprint that the crypto conferences make on Lisbon mostly. But yeah, it's not pretty. It a little bit sounds like blitz colonization. It's what it looks like. But then the locals eventually they do benefit from it, even if they don't want to use the technology or leverage the ideas that we carry. They still, like, not just t-shirts, they invent new taxation models.
Oh, for sure. I guess it was an example of, because we're going to see in Bangkok now, DevCon, which is the technical conference, the peak of engineering excellence for Ethereum. It is a magnet for similar type of people from many ecosystems. It is possible to be so deeply into the tech that you can fly in and fly back out and not see all the opportunities to solve the real problem using that tech. That's like the weird thing. 2 years ago was Bogota. The year after, or the 2 years after, was in Istanbul.
Yeah,
Some
it
people may
was
be cynic and say that they're choosing location based on like drugs or prostitutes or whatever. But I'd like to think that they're choosing locations where it is possible to identify real use cases and solutions and engage with active communities. It's just not as active as I'd like to see. Maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised in Bangkok. I've only been here for 1 week, but
And no, I don't think that the whole city can be really representative for a certain technology unless it's something really small and focused, like, for example, Zug in Switzerland, right? When you think about this kind of city, it's headquarters for blockchain companies, like metallurgy companies. So this is like really profiled city. Or you think about, I don't know, Antwerp in Netherlands, and you think about, okay, so this is the fourth city, they do logistics. When you think about big cities like Berlin or Bangkok, there is not a single concept about them. But I think it's a really beautiful thought you offer when you get to travel to all these beautiful places to try not to teleport from Los Angeles to Bangkok and just, the food is different. Oh, the transportation tickets are a little bit different. Oh, the traffic. But really try to see what the city is about and what kind of challenges it offers. And as you suggested, talking to the locals might not probably solve immediately all the problems, but might highlight the ideas that can be solved with blockchain technology.
imagine a hackathon and there's, I almost said a summer camp, and they can be like stations where maybe not every team can have a UI UX designer, but they can be like a station with UI UX designers and anyone can go to them at any time for some help or feedback, or even something like we have a set of random users and you can just go to them and just try to validate the idea. I suspect that AI and those kind of tools will be very useful for these soon. But yeah,
I remember actually, so there's this project Sweat Economy in the ecosystem, and I was in negotiations with them for a long time. I wanted them to offer hackathon bounty, and they figured out what kind of bounty they want to offer. But what they don't want to offer is a monetary price. Instead, they would offer real audience of 150,000 people who already use Sweat Economy. It's just a share of the general user base, but it's a real share of people who would try their projects through A/B testing, and people would see in real time the feedback, how people use it, what kind of problems they run into. And I think this is the honestly for people who are set on building long term, this is the best bounty that they could do, like access to user base.
it's actually pretty cool. I think the hot wallet did something similar around, hey, like the number one
Yeah.
bounty prize was putting the application in front of their massive user base. I like that.
Yeah. Just I think the difference is that here wallet is a wallet, right? It's like a one trick pony, so to say, a little bit compared to Sweat Economy, where you can really implement like crazy functions. But I think if you really think about DeFi projects outside of the box, you can offer pretty cool features as well.
Okay, next one. From your extensive experience dealing with like sponsors and sponsorships and just prize money in general, what are your thoughts on having maybe like an ongoing bounty? And some of my rationale here is that I saw a funny post recently that I very much identified with. It was, why do I get all this like existential crisis every time I go to LinkedIn? And this was like a founder, like a successful founder that raised money and everything. But there was something about LinkedIn that, I don't know, it just makes you feel insecure and insufficient because all these job posts are written in such a way. Anyway, I'm thinking that a lot of people are successful at just messaging the company or the hirer, maybe outside the hiring process, just make it more personal. Maybe there's not even a position open at the time. So I was thinking of something maybe similar where, okay, hackathons can be time bound, challenge specific, or maybe being more explicit around, hey, anyone that develops anything along these lines, they can be prize money. And I'm even thinking, hey, the first 3 applications that do whatever, a lending protocol on Near, we only have one. Next 2, you all get minimum liquidity. where you all get exposure to users. Try to find a way to maybe align long-term incentives or allow people to think. Maybe they get started with a hackathon and then they can stay around like a broader mission. It can probably be framed as a problem statement. Hey, how could we triple near TVL by the end of the year, 2025? Anyone that builds X or Y.
Great ideas. So it's like an online brainstorm of sorts. So I see positive sides in this kind of partnership with the broader community. You create like a funnel of a diameter of a planet, so everything that falls into it, you will get it eventually. But why hackathons are facilitated so much is because we need to see how people interact with the mentors. Are they ready to receive feedback and adapt? So are they actually like the material that we can work with if they really join the ecosystem? And the second thing that we want to look at is the progress of the team, because we can see brilliant products, but then we realize that this was built over 4 months, right? And then we see some solution that is built on I don't know, nails and sticks, and it's built through 48 hours. But this is such a brilliant approach and ingenious solution. We want to see how people's minds work around problem solving. So this is why at hackathons, we don't necessarily want to accept like ready-made products. We want to see that progress. But other than that, I think an ongoing bounty, if it's facilitated, that the mentors are available, if there are certain milestones to this bounty delivery, I think it's a very good idea and it could benefit the ecosystem tremendously.
I like it. Next one. We get a castle in France. Could be anywhere. Maybe Italy. Ideally near a winery. And we run, say, a month-long hackathon residential. But we do almost, I see it like a secret challenge or a series of challenges where we try to vet people. I guess it'd be very similar to what you're mentioning now, around trying to understand the problem solving, the technical skills, the way that they interact with others. And ideally, almost like Survivor kind of thing. And when people arrive at the castle, you have, maybe a more curated group. Because, the question always is, look, 1,700 participants, they can be in so many different places that it can be really hard to target things for them or curate things for them. Because it's tightly linked with the in-person versus online question and those group dynamics and the support that can be given to people.
Yeah, I would always vote for in-person hackathon, especially the one where you can truly get immersed in the experience of hustle next to the winery, which wouldn't have the bustling and hustling city around it. I think that would be a really great place to bootcamp hard skills in developers to get them to learn something and then to get them to try out their newly acquired skills. But I think you made a really good point was that it needs to be carefully curated and all the people need to be on board with the experience that they're here to receive. Otherwise, you will just get a fraternity hug, which is not bad. It's just not the outcome that we want.
Depends how close the winery is.
Yeah, okay. Looking out of my window, I actually can observe a castle next to a winery. That's one of the episodes of living in Portugal. So yeah, I can envision this kind of thing.
Next time you walk the dog, do some inquiry, and that'd be great. Kind of related. I'm wondering, like, the role of mentorship and how we can try to bridge that gap between the OG hardcore developers, I'd say Eugene the Dream, Frol, Ilya, Vadim, with the younger people. Because, there's a huge knowledge transfer that needs to happen in every ecosystem. And I'll add an extra anecdote here. I think it was one of the hacker houses in Denver last year. Half the people were on mushrooms. I fell asleep. And there was Eugene the Dream. I remember there was like Jordan Starpose. Who else was there? There was like some hardcore devs just sitting there, middle of the night with their laptops. And I'll never forget the funniest line. They were doing something on your social. And I woke up And Eugene the Dream says, in the time that you've been asleep, we just shipped, and he just mentioned like a few features or something. Because it was really collaborative. Like he was like he understood the code base very well. It is his code base. And people gave him some feedback, something worked, something didn't work, and they were just like at it, like on the spot. And I thought that moment was very magical, not just because I was high, but I saw that really valuable connection between the creator, the user, and just being able to hack things on the spot. I think there was a real sense of community in that house, which is another category we can open up, how the community has grown and evolved, and maybe some ideas or challenges for next year. But I'll pass over the mic to you.
So I really like this concept that actually was really successful in Lisbon before the pandemic, which is called Startup in Residence, where you create this ecosystem and offer the teams who want to build something a residence of several months where they can live and work in the same environment as their mentors and potential investors and their peers and competitors. So put them all in one place, but not for a long time, just 3 months, for example. The cadets would be 3 months, and make them interact spontaneously at the water cooler, at the mushroom trip, and see what comes up. And there is something magical of putting people in this kind of environment for a short amount of time. Because even if they don't interact all of the time, there's synergy and the ideas they bounce off of each other. It only happens when they are physically present. But then I think for people like Ilya, it's probably not super realistic to expect that they would be there for 3 months and they would be available every day. But I think when Ilya becomes really old, like 60 years old, maybe he would be up for the
I mean, there is a challenge as families grow and there's different responsibilities. But I think that definitely the physical connection, because it really comes down to like trust and getting to know people and how they work. And I remember way back in the day when I was at uni in Australia, there's the first year camps. So the week before the university starts, they basically load up a bunch of first years in buses and you go to camp and you spend the weekend mostly drinking and doing some degenerate shit. But it's actually really interesting because I was a mentor for the Law Student Society till like my 4th, 5th year. I was very active in all the social activities. If you can't tell, I wasn't that academic, but I was very social. And it became pretty obvious that the people that went on the first year camp created much stronger bonds that were really valuable as they were studying. They had teams to do assignments, they had support groups, they could get lifts to go to uni. Even after you graduate, that is your network, that's your professional network. So one weekend together, even if it was like no agenda other than drinking and whatever dancing, was the equivalent of probably 2 years of seeing someone 2 or 3 times a week in random classes, maybe a barbecue on the lawn. So yeah, the challenge that I have now is how do you sell it? Because somebody has to pay for the castle. And I understand that the best pitch is not going to be we're going to have mushrooms and become friends. But if we did, the ecosystem would be a magical place. So we're going to strike a balance. Maybe we could team up here or something. I'm curious from your very social and cross-community experience, what some insights may be on that front.
how to create the kind of horizontal connections in the community. That's an interesting question, especially since most of the people in Web3 will be looking for remote first jobs. No one wants to go to the office anymore. But I really think that we have our offsites, right? And offsites are always super productive because we haven't seen each other for half a year. And then we have this intense working session where we don't get distracted. We just do what we intend to do and that maybe party a little bit afterwards. So I think it doesn't have to do anything with the hackathons, but probably with the hiring process and the whole human resources management and Web3. We need to have in-person sessions time and again. Maybe not a castle, just a summer camp would do. The summer camp would be a great idea. just a 2-week long session for everyone to really come together to get to know the people you're working with, to connect the designers with the coders, with the finance and legal people, to get to know what the ecosystem is about, and to see what we can do about it, how we can make it better, and what kind of problems are we actually solving, except creating a personal cash flow for every single company. I mean, you hosted the Hackerhouse Chiang Mai, and
We
you
did.
saw a lot of other ecosystems also wanted to come up with something like that. There was this Edge City. They tried to offer the bounty for the redacted hackathon, and then it didn't work, unfortunately. But how did it feel? Because you told me that Chiang Mai felt like it was just this invasion of crypto people for a couple of weeks, and that it wouldn't really change anything. So
Yeah,
how
well,
did it feel having this whole community around you?
yeah, thank you for the opportunity to share about the Chiang Mai Hacker House. It was very interesting. So the first thing, maybe we can focus on like the marketing or how we sold it. The moment that Shot told me about it, I was like, we have to be there. Getting all these people in one place, surely magic will happen. Being there was fascinating because every house had a very different target audience and vibe. I don't know if I'm gonna get in trouble, but I went to a workshop, a solidity workshop at Invisible Garden from someone that I met the night before, and I happened to be there for a meeting that they had. And one of the organizers, he was joking, but very strongly worded around, I'm gonna paraphrase here, don't quote me, but he was like, hey, motherfuckers, like, we're paying you to be here. We expect you to be here 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. You get sick, you tell us. Like, there is a form for that. You can't go missing. You can't be just like hopping from party to party and barbecue to, like, you're here to do work. We want to see your progress. We know what you're working on. If you don't know what to work on, talk to us. We'll fucking give you work. And I was like, actually, accommodation in Chiang Mai is not that expensive. And you basically got a ZK developer for a full month for way undervalued. I don't know. I didn't like that vibe. And maybe I was there for one meeting that was a little bit rough, but the whole experience is great. I'm not going to judge them too harshly. Megazoo was different, but similar. People had a lot of autonomy on how they organize their time, but being the mega founder, she was on people. My friends were telling me, like, we should call you 11 p.m. Be like, hey, your pitch was shit. What are you doing? You're pitching again in 4 days. This has to improve. What I liked about that one is that I guess people had a lot more autonomy, but the standards were very high. They didn't tell you what to work on, but Vitalik was there. The pitches were open to everyone. I went to 1 or 2 of them, and it was interesting. Edge City, fascinating. They take maybe like a broader approach. It was like multi-generational. There were people there with kids. It was multidisciplinary. Some people were doing robotics. Some people were doing health. It was like their own thing. Yeah. Herodao, they had a beautiful space, co-working and co-living. They were super chill. What the vibe that I got from them was that it was very focused on like education. We went a few times and they had workshops from Base, workshops from Starknet. They participated in several hackathons, lots of support. So that was very welcoming, I guess more beginner friendly. And there were several experiences. To be honest, it was very intimidating. But like that opening session where Vitalik spoke and everyone presented what they had planned for the whole month, I was like, shit, they literally just have a house. It's just people hacking. And while they're hacking, we talked it over and helped here and there, give some feedback, some user testing. I think the people in the house got value from that. But it was definitely eye-opening that if we want to do it again, maybe at that level, like a proper pop-up village, these people must have had somebody doing this close to full-time for months. And some of these houses, and maybe that's why Invisible Garden would have been a lot more strict on the attendance and the output, it must have costed hundreds of thousands. So it was a weird balance between, okay, how much did it cost us and what were we trying to get out of it? There was a hackathon going on. It was simpler. What are they trying to get out of it? The most interesting thing to me is that even though some organizers didn't see it, the real value was in the connections people were making. Like I met people that were paying their own way. They were not in any village and they went to a bunch of events and now they're very well connected with a bunch of builders and they were able to group around interests. So that's the tension that I see. Like, how do we balance the fact that, okay, if we're going to fuck around with someone else's money, you have to have a structure, you have to justify, there has to be an outcome, but also it's harder to know before you do it and it's not guaranteed. And I don't know. Look, I thought that maybe what could have made the Near Hacker House better was if it had like more actual near people or pre-existing community members. I thought it was great. We got some hardcore Ethereum developers and they learned about Near during those days. But maybe my original vision of Near having a presence in Chiang Mai, I don't think they were really in a position to say, yes, we are here from Near and explain what we're doing or have those conversations. So maybe that's that cross-pollination of having the Near ecosystem learn what other communities are doing and help us level up and let them know what we're doing in terms of technology and ideally find more paths to share. I don't think we got. Shot and I were there. Owen was there, although Owen works very hard. I don't know if you know that, but some days he did not leave his room or the house. He was just on the computer 16 hours a day.
Did you see his hackathon submissions?
I saw it before he submitted. I haven't seen the pitch, but
great. I think he has a good shot at winning. But yeah, this time he really set at winning. That's why I think he was not very social. He was working so hard.
So yeah, that was Chiang Mai. Hopefully we can be unburdened by what has been and get a castle or a summer camp. I'm curious, are you like Europe bound? I don't think I've ever seen you outside of Europe.
No, I'm not really Europe bound, but I'm just, I guess I didn't travel that much outside of Europe. I've been to the US recently at the ecosystem offsite in New York. But other than that, I think I've been in Brussels and Berlin and everything that's Europe based. It's not because I don't want to leave Europe. It's because we are trying to optimize our kind of carbon footprint and we send people within the same continent. I think most of the teams in our ecosystem, they have the same policy. Unless it's necessary for you to travel to another continent, a person who is based closer would travel instead. That's the policy.
If you could organize a hackathon in any area, which area would it be? Like your dream hackathon for 2025. Unlimited budget, you dream it can happen. What would you do?
To organize a hackathon that I really wanted to do. So there is this project in European Union called DGEDU Hackathon, New Technologies for Education. And this year, one of the focuses was AI. This is like really near and dear to me because I have an 11-year-old. She's in the 6th grade and she's actively using AI as her co-pilot to do assignments and to do research. She's an AI native. I was maybe digital native back in my day. For her, she's not amazed what like Gemini or ChatGPT does. She's yeah, I'm just going to ask ChatGPT. And I'm like, my mind is getting blown. But then we are not competing for attention of these kids anymore. We are competing for curiosity because the accessibility of the information that they have on their fingertips and the explanations of everything in the universe, it makes them a little bit uncurious because why be curious? Why explore if you already have all of the answers, if this digital guy has all of the answers? So education needs to transform in that sense to incentivize curiosity. And I really wanted to host this hackathon on how to approach AI as teachers and educators. Unfortunately, it didn't work out because of the date. It would happen next week and I already have 2 hackathons on my shoulders. But next year, I would manifest unlimited budget for that because I think if you put educators and engineers and actual kids in a castle next to a winery and ask them, how do we reinvent education when AI killed curiosity? We can achieve some really amazing results.
Funded. I am not in the events committee and I don't think I should be, but you are. It's funded right now. No, that sounds amazing. And I think it really sums up the subject matter expertise. Like you can see your daughter and how she interacts with the technology, which obviously gives you like a unique understanding of the problem. Even if I had to imagine the problem, it's just not the same. Also, just as a side note, when I was a teenager, I worked at a summer camp. I'm actually great with kids. So while we hack, I can run some games with the kids.
You're hiking with us. It's
Yeah,
just
for sure.
the problem with this is always return of the investment. So every time we need to do something like that, we need to say, this will benefit this and that, and we can actually make 200,000 euro out of that, which is not probably happening. But living in Europe is really beneficial because it's a little bit more socialist than the United States, and people can actually get funded for this kind of project. But yeah, that's why I'm sticking around.
No, it's fascinating. And the way that you framed the problem as well, it's great because the question that I was formulating in my head was whether you've seen her run into responses that don't really match her expectations. She asks something, he gives an answer back, and she's like, that's not what I want. Because I think that would be an interesting threshold, right? Do you just absorb anything it gives you? Or do you have enough curiosity or like baseline knowledge to be able to tell, oh, actually, that's not what I want? For instance, I find what Perplexity is doing super interesting because you ask something, and at the bottom of the answer, it preempts all the possible follow-up questions. In some ways, it could just be convenient, but in other ways, it could actually help you think about the problem in maybe tangents that you weren't thinking about, but you can keep adding to it. I see with developers as well, if you know how to code, when it gives you code back, you know how to prompt it or keep debugging. If you have no idea, it's worthless. As a tool, coding without knowing what it's giving you, it's extremely hard. So yeah, that's an amazing hackathon.
Invited to unlimited
Done.
funding. That's with me.
Crazy story. Yeah, unlimited funding enables a lot of things, right? I heard Elon Musk has 19,000 children, so I think he'd be interested in this kind of problem statement.
I think
he may also.
He's more interested in reproduction than actual childbearing. We can get some funding. Yeah, we can get some.
We all have a role to play. That's what I'm saying.
And I wouldn't be as good as that. But he's actually, what he's great at is off-the-shelf solutions. He invented off-the-shelf solutions in space tech. So everything reusable, everything cheap, everything on the budget, it's his. He applied this economies of scale principle to the industry that never saw it. That was really cautious. We need to do 1,000 tests. We need to design a bolt from scratch and a screwdriver from scratch. So he just came in and said, what if we buy it from Home Depot and try to build a rocket out of what's available on Home Depot? So in that case, in that sense, I really respect the way that the guy's thinking, that we have to distance from the personality to be able to appreciate the way it's thinking.
It's actually, when you don't code, you read books. I read a really interesting book about Jeff Bezos, The Everything Store. This is a 2013 book. He's done a lot more since, especially with cloud computing and stuff. But there were two things that really struck out to me from that book. The first one is that he was featured as a child in Texas in a book about gifted children. So he was already very smart growing up. The second thing is that after he graduated, he goes to work for the only investment firm, trading firm in Wall Street doing algorithmic trading. So he was already on the bleeding edge of technology. And he saw the statistic around how fast the internet was growing. And he's like, I don't know what I'll do, but this is the area to be like, that's the growth that I want. Started with books, obviously evolved into everything else. But along the way, he also had that frugality. Like Amazon is famous for new hires, you arrive and they give you I think it's like from IKEA, you basically buy like a piece of wood and the leg separately and you assemble your own desk. And you're like, Amazon. At some point, Amazon was very well capitalized, but they were like, nah, motherfucker, like you build your own desk. Like we build here. Like you have to think about your output and have pride in your desk. It may look like shit, but you built it. So anyway, it's a strange analogy, but I'm wondering, are there lessons there for Web3? I don't want to fuck ourselves here. We do want the limited budget, but are there lessons there for Web3? Because it does seem like magic money just pours out of rainbows and unicorns as. And I think sometimes it's maybe detrimental. Like after we secure the budget for the castle, maybe we can move on to the question of, is there too much money in Web3?
But that's a very good question that makes me think of classes and growth. guy, Karl Marx. We represent a certain class of the society, and this is very new to humanity. We don't have generational wealth. We didn't make, we are not nouveau riche. We didn't make our money out of selling some stuff that people need. I don't know, grates or toilet paper, most of us, I think. We are overfunded by this structure called venture capital. And I think it's a beautiful thing because it provides. So I can only talk from the Ukrainian perspective because I grew up there. And I know for a fact that people from poor background like myself, my parents are school teachers and I don't know a thing. I don't own a thing in my life. So I come from a super basic and poor background. But for people like me who are curious and eager to work and eager to explore, uh, IT industry in general and blockchain in particular provides this kind of social elevator for us to raise above our housing problems and I don't know what else and do amazing things without thinking where to get our next $100 from. And I do think it's great. I do think it's harmful for the societies on larger scale because people don't really understand what we do and why do we get to stay home or travel to the conferences in Bangkok. And it creates certain tension between normies and degens. But I think there was always this kind of either industry or a class in society that benefited a little more in terms of to deliver more eventually. So we need to be responsible for the resources that we receive. And I know that some people will just grab it and it's my 9 to 5. I'm just going to code stuff and then close my laptop and watch Netflix on the TV. But we have more resources and more knowledge and more connections than most people in the world. And if we collectively leverage it as the ecosystem, we can actually tackle some really cool world problems. I cannot say that we can end war. I don't think we cannot. I don't know, maybe world hunger. Can we do that? Can we make this a mission? So world hunger. I think we do. I think we can with blockchain. It's pretty doable. Looks doable to me.
Depends how much you eat. For me, that really resonates. I did something really strange because I moved to Australia as an 18-year-old. And most people are coming from Venezuela. Venezuela was already going downhill pretty fast. And most people play it safe. Study accounting, study anything that you can find work, and that is a pathway to permanent residency. And I was a little bit idealistic. I guess I've always been a little bit outspoken. And I was like, no, I want to study something that I'm actually interested in. So I went for law. I did a double degree, which was an insane waste of money. I did arts law. And I'll never forget the first year. One of the lecturers was like, oh, so how many here, it was a full lecture theater. How many here actually want to practice as lawyers? And I put my hand up. Little did I know back then, about half the lecture theater did. And then he had the audacity to tell that lecture theater, how many of your parents are lawyers? 3 put their hands up. And you know what he said? You 3 will go to work as lawyers. The rest of you, you better work your fucking ass because there's a gross oversupply. Like law now, it's like a status thing that you get. You pick it up and then you go do something else. And yeah, it was a long journey through uni to try to find my place, but you always have that in the back of your head. Shit, I'm brand new in this country, have nothing, know no one, and you're competing against everyone else that does. And look, I've never been like a resentful person or a victim mentality or any of that, but I definitely saw the stark contrast that once you go into technology, no one cares about your educational background. No one cares how much money you have. No one cares about anything, to be honest. You could literally be an anon cat on the internet and still get a job. So yeah, in that sense, I do think that we have an incredible opportunity. I'm actually trying to get my sister now to get a remote job. She's in Costa Rica and she was looking for a job like in Costa Rica, which doesn't really pay that well. And I was like, it's a new world. You have to enter the matrix. Hard to explain. She doesn't really understand what I do, so it's hard to get her.
I feel like
Maybe she can help out with the Costa Rican hackathoners.
I think you need to get her to a hackathon so she would see what it's about. Hackathon is
She'd
a
be pretty good
very
at it too.
nice
She's very
entry point.
outgoing.
And
Yarotska, I'm mindful of your time and how many hackathon submissions you have to do. Just a couple more quick questions.
yeah.
I'm interviewing Ilya in about 48 hours. What should I ask him? If any suggestions come to mind, we can do it offline if anything comes to mind afterwards, but
I would probably, so if I were in this kind of open conversation with Ilya, I would probably ask him, how do you stay consistently successful in this Shark Tank of a venture industry? Because Ilya seems such a nice guy, such a people's person, and then he's like consistently kicking ass in the business. Some CEOs, you look at them, say, that guy is hard. That good. But Ilya, when you talk to Ilya, he's actually quite nice. He has great vibes around him. And I really genuinely don't understand how could he survive like being Ilya? Because when I try to put myself in his shoes, I couldn't last a day. It seems like almost impossible to be Ilya, to be, I don't know, Jeff Bezos. Probably it's horrible to be Jeff Bezos. Just imagine your phone call starts at 7 a.m. and then yeah.
yeah,
Human curiosity is, it's not.
it's a great question. To be honest, sometimes I wonder the same, especially because he's got a newborn. And I've been DMing with him the last couple of weeks. And sometimes I feel bad because I'm like, he's got a lot of shit to do. Like when I send a DM, that's the bulk of my concern for that day or for that line of work. This is 2 minutes, respond, move on to the next thing.
Even to sit but in the same office with in the beginning of 2022. And that's where the question is actually coming from, because the guy doesn't have a minute to himself throughout the day. And I know for sure that if you're developing a product like Near, you have to reserve some time because so just to think about how to improve. What's next for Near? Is it sharding? Is it chain abstraction? When does he come up with these ideas? When he shower? Because I cannot imagine any other time.
Yeah. And I hope he showers frequently,
That
When I Yes. I don't know about Ukraine, but I know that Spain, France, winter months, showers are off. It's optional, you could go for weeks without a shower.
We were shower. No, we were not sustainable.
Okay. Respect. Weird question. You don't have to answer if you don't want to, but do you feel like there's a special connection, like something more in common, like familiarity, maybe with Vlad, with Shevchenko, with Ilya? It's hard not to notice that there is a very strong Ukrainian representation in Web3 in general, but I guess that Near in particular has a strong core team.
I think as someone who comes from Venezuela, you can probably understand this, or a person from Nigeria would probably understand that, because, for example, for Africa, they quickly become completely unbanked because traditional financial products are so bad and the currencies are so volatile that people just don't use them. We need to invent a better way about this. So this is why the Web3 is booming there. And in Ukraine, it covers the same problem. It's our kind of crutch when the economy doesn't provide certain instruments, certain features that it provides in more developed countries. We need to build the features. We need to invent the features. And that's why Web3 it's not just Ukrainians, people from Belarus, for example. They also need to invent this kind of thing. And even I can have my own opinions about Russians, but they recently invented this really good thing for decentralized elections. Your phone would scan an NFC chip in your passport. Through zero knowledge, it would validate your identity so you could actually vote, and they would host alternative election Russians.
Is that the one they used in Georgia recently? Because I follow a girl, she's been sharing about it.
Yeah. I don't remember the exact name of the project, but they are building that. They are building tooling for network states because they don't have what they need. So our approach was always, I don't have this, maybe I could build it. I cannot wait until someone provides it to me. So I might build it as well. And that's what I love about Ukrainians in general and our ecosystems, Ukrainians in particular. They're very resourceful in that sense.
One of the things that I like about traveling is to unplug myself as much as possible from a very heavy American-centric view of the world. Australia is inevitably very close, US axis. But I love traveling around Europe, around Asia, and be reminded that 90% of the world gives literally zero fucks. Yes, it is true. Obviously, American policy have a ripple effect in the world. But yeah, I think sometimes it's important to remind people that there are real problems in the world that this technology can solve, that for real innovation, you don't ask for permission. And I think that's where maybe grouping people together and just having that common challenge, common vision, just hacking away is good. I don't know why I have the feeling that some hackathons skew younger, maybe like university students, or like recent grads. Have you noticed that, or are there any patterns there?
I notice a lot of students do participate in the hackathons. For them, actually, it's the first thing that they can put on the CV. I didn't realize that back in the day, but you can actually do a project in the hackathon and tell your future employer that, I want this. I don't know, it's Global Bangkok. And it's pretty cool. But for me, I think the ideal recipe, if you're a student or maybe a high schooler, you want to participate in a first hackathon, the teams that performed best were teams that were like several students and the mentor or a teacher, because the teacher would provide this kind of project management expertise and help them focus. But young minds sometimes have this perspective and capacity that older people don't have anymore. So they can provide great results, new things, and the teacher would help them facilitate and streamline this into a project submission.
I'm actually very bullish on baby Jesus. I'm bullish on university hackathons. I actually want to see more outreach in those, like young talent. However, I saw this crazy TikTok around business models. There's this new category around things you can do for millennials. So there's like millennial parties. They do like day parties, or they do like whatever, millennial run clubs. And it's like they run at night with music, and then it's like a dating weird mix up, whatever. What I'm getting at is, in the crazy category bucket, can we have a hackathon for millennials, like 30 plus, and maybe try to have people that come from like different industries, and they can literally just start, what do you do for work? Or what is your like lived experience? This is a technology. Does something come to mind? It would be pretty weird, perhaps. We need to find a way to curate it, but we could even do it with retirees. Be like, hey, like you have an entire life of experience.
So
This is new alien technology.
Right? We are sandwiched between our parents who need support and our kids who already start needing support. And we in the sandwich, we don't have any moments in the day to just sit and contemplate, okay, so where is this coming from? You know, this principle of 5 questions why. When you question something that exists, you have to ask why 5 times, and then probably you will dig to. I think for millennials, the hackathon format should be more like a retreat. We would just grab their cell phones and ask their families not to call at any given moment. No calls whatsoever. Nothing to do. Just sit and think about something that bothers you in life, and how can you actually fix it with your enormous experience of troubleshooting, problem solving, and surviving through a literal zombie apocalypse. 3 recent years have been, or maybe more. I don't remember even when it started. Probably with pandemic.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I was trying best to keep my patience to troubleshoot my dad. So his VPN app on his phone, because they had to get a VPN app because the government blocked Twitter and the things you deal in certain regimes. So I was trying to explain to him how to close the background application because it wasn't letting him connect to the internet. And I was like, okay, dad, like at the bottom of your phone, imagine that you're like selecting something and then swipe up. and he didn't get it, and it was a disaster. He just deleted the app, but yeah,
Remotely.
what he explained to me, I think we spent Christmas together in Barcelona last year, and he was explaining to me like, look, you have to understand, like the people my age, we've seen like black and white TVs, like radio, faxes. Like there's been so much technology advancing so fast in their lives. It is actually a miracle of user experience and technology that they know how to use a smartphone, like how intuitive it is, and you can change the size of the keyboards. And it's actually got like when he put it that way, I was like, shit. Like I grew up with this, and I can still learn. Although I feel like I maybe loosen grip on some things. Maybe your daughter is definitely like 3 steps ahead.
If someone gave you an Android phone and a Windows laptop, would you be able to learn?
Android phone, maybe. Windows laptop, I think that boat sailed. Linux, no way.
I didn't have Conrad for him. This is Windows for you.
Yeah. No, when I talk to the AI now, I'm like, explain it to me. It is the first time that I see it. Because I've had some things. Owen was laughing a lot. I was like, I'm stuck in a folder. I don't know how to get myself out of this folder to open like a new folder for a different project. And I was like, I know I have the near CLI. I don't know how to get back into it. There's a lot of beginner knowledge there that the AI is helpful, not to embarrass yourself. But yeah, anyway, different types of hackathons for different audiences. Good news is the same hackathon or the same castle or summer camp would serve everyone equally. So maybe we just buy the castle next to you and just run it year round.
And I'm just looking at it. Probably it's on sale. So I can check really quick. So let's manifest on the for the next year.
I'm a big manifester. Last 2 questions. If you weren't organizing hackathons, let's say crazy alternative universe, there's actually no Web3. What do you think you'd be doing, like professionally or yeah?
I would be a botanist. I'm really big on plants. Yeah, and really like in every city that I live, I'm friends with people who work in botanical garden. And I think it's the process of introducing plants on a new soil and new climate is so fascinating. And they grow so much amazing stuff. And also you can extrapolate it to food security and all of the problems that we have around that. So I'm really interested in botany. I think I would be a botanist.
That's actually an amazing answer. Do you have many plants at home, or do you have space where you can have like a little like veggie garden?
Yeah, I do. I do have a veggie garden. But I unfortunately don't have much time for it yet. But I'm planning for retirement. For millennials, retirement never counts. So
Of course, yeah. No,
manifest.
Last one. If anyone listening to this, I want to try organizing a hackathon. Like, how should they start? I think you mentioned a book towards the beginning. Is there like a community of hackathon organizers or resources? Maybe they could assist somebody who is already doing it. Are you looking for a little assistant?
So we have this project in a near ecosystem called Hackbox. So if you have a local community of devs, you want to try and host a hackathon for them, just all of the knowledge that we have about hosting hackathons, and you can try to host your own little one. But I would say with maybe some event organizing experience would be good because you just need to understand what you do. Answer yourself the question, do I know how many pizzas do I need to feed 50 people for 48 hours? And if you know the answer, you qualify to do a hackathon. If you don't know the answer, then maybe try event organizing first.
That hurts. I don't know if I told you. I think I sent it on the Telegram chat for the AI hackathon in Brussels.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how many people were still hacking at midnight, like just hidden somewhere in the co-working space. So I sent a message saying, hey, react to this message if you want pizza. Like I'll be ordering midnight pizza. Only 2 people reacted. I was in a table with 4 people. I think I ordered 3 or 4 pizzas, like not many. And then when I sent a message, hey, pizza's arrived.
Yeah.
People came out of the woodworks. Everyone ate. I didn't eat. And I paid for it. And I was like, that is a donation to the hackers and to my health, I guess. Perhaps I'm getting fat from so much travel, but Yeah.
If you were a hackathon organizer, you would know exactly how many pizzas you should order.
We're gonna have to run a cheat sheet here. How many heads and how many pizzas?
Yeah, I guess I need to educate ChatGPT on this.
Oh, that's good. Maria, it's been amazing. I'm so happy we had a chance to talk. One of those people that I see doing a lot of things in the background, and I think it's inevitable to just learn a lot from being exposed to so many things and people. And yeah,
Yeah, maybe now less people will be afraid of me, hopefully, now that they know that
can't
I'm
make
actually
any guarantees.
a very organist on the different side.
Actually, yeah, the possibility definitely makes you more likable. There is a famous quote from Machiavelli that it says, "It is better to be feared than loved."
No. Okay, I'm gonna remember that in my darkest hours. Thank you for inviting me.
This was in the context of keeping Italy united and a very different historical context. But if you're having a rough day, Machiavelli is there with you.
Yeah, I always remember that we have some really well-loved person in the ecosystem, including yourself. So there needs to be balance in the world.
There needs to be balance in the world. What a way to wrap it up. Maria, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Wish you could make it to Bangkok, but I guess I'll see you soon at another castle in Europe. And yeah, let's keep in touch.
Absolutely. I'll be there on the highest tower.